Stories are the double-edged sword of justice. My name is Osadumebi, and every week I will tell you a short story written by a Nigerian writer or author. That's the long and short of it. So without much ado, this week's story is by Somtoochukwu Benedict Ezioha, and it's titled, I Thought You Knew Your Client. Claps thundered around me as I stepped out of the courtroom, surrounded by a flood of faces. Journalists scribbled notes, onlookers craned their necks, and the defendant's family broke into relieved smiles. Pride bloomed in my chest, my stride confident and eyes bright. I had pulled off the impossible. Another supposed ritual killer walked free because of me. Samuel Obi, charged with the savage slaying of his parents in what was claimed to be a satanic act, was now unshackled by the doubt I planted in the jury's minds. In the hallway, Samuel's grip was firm on my hand. Thank you, Christian. Picking the top defense lawyer in Abuja was a smart choice, he said, his voice a mix of gratitude and something else I couldn't quite catch. Until this trial, Samuel was just another name, a shadow, until he stepped into my office, drawn by the whispers of my courtroom prowess. A sigh escaped me, the weight of weeks of tension melting away. I stood by what is fair, Samuel. A fair shot in court, that is everyone's due, I said, feeling the truth of the words in my bones. Samuel's smile was a smirk that chilled rather than cheered. You're talented, Mr. Okpara. You can twist words to make the night seem like day. Just remember, every talent comes with its cost. He murmured, and an involuntary shudder ran through me. A shiver snaked up my back at his veiled words, yet I dismissed it as nerves. This man had battled monstrous accusations, enough to skew anyone's behavior. Those trials had clawed into him, reshaping the Samuel his friends had celebrated. The spark in his eyes had dimmed, and his buoyant laughter now echoed emptily. The Samuel who used to radiate warmth and charisma was overshadowed, his words dragging with caution, his sharp looks now unkempt. Time to leave, I murmured, guiding him through the hallway to freedom. Each step echoed our journey, the courtroom duels, the relentless media storm, and the looming question of Samuel's future. This trial was a beast of its own, swarmed by a media circus, drenched in the nightmare of the acts committed. Even for a seasoned defender like me, it pushed me to the brink. The crime scene was a chapter torn from a macabre tale. Mr. and Mrs. Obi, their bodies a canvas of over 100 stab wounds, a gallery of satanic symbols encircling them in a crimson story. The crime gripped the town in a vice of headlines and fear, its horror inescapable. Evidence loomed large against Samuel. His fingerprints at the scene hinted at guilt. His clothes bore silent testament to his parents' blood. And the silent song of security footage showed his car stationed outside their home on that ill-fated night. The prosecution's story was unyielding, portraying Samuel as a zealot with his parents' end as a grotesque offering. But I planted doubts in the jury's minds as deftly as a gardener. Samuel swore he spent the night dueling in PS5 football matches until the morning light, backed by friends who confirmed his story. The so-called evidence against him, a sinister plot to frame, perhaps. Samuel's friends stood firm, their voices unwavering as they recounted the night's tournament, controllers in hand until sunrise. Their words, coupled with the digital trail of time-stamped posts on social media, fortified Samuel's alibi like a fortress against doubt. I painted Samuel as a son shattered by loss, his grief raw and palpable in the silent courtroom. My closing words struck deep, drawing tears from the jurors' eyes. When the gavel fell, the shadows of doubt rendered the circumstantial evidence insufficient for conviction. It was a verdict that echoed justice served. Even from our first handshake, Samuel sometimes set my nerves on edge. His gaze would dart away as if avoiding the truth, and his voice, often chilling and detached, sent ripples of unease down my back. Those brief encounters, where a shadow seemed to flicker behind his eyes, had etched themselves in my memory. He emitted a silent threat that whispered of danger. Yet, my career was built on peeling back the monstrous to reveal the human. And Samuel, he appeared as just another lost soul snagged by fate's cruel hand. I guided Samuel to my car, a black sedan gleaming under the courthouse's glaring lights. We slipped out of the lot in silence until I couldn't bear it any longer. "Samuel, you must be relieved. This whole ordeal is now behind you," I ventured. Turning his head with mechanical slowness, Samuel met my gaze with icy detachment. Relieved? Yes. I'm free now. That one word, free, hung in the air, a chill which crept along my spine. I coughed out a nervous chuckle. "Well, time to put it all in the past, huh? Where to?" "The family home," he replied, tone as barren as winter. "There are things I must retrieve." A pause clung to the air, thick with my reluctance. The Obi's house, swathed in yellow tape and shrouded in morbid memories, called to us with a silent, sinister beckon. Yet how could I, his defender, refuse? With a nod, I steered the car towards the tree-lined streets of the Obi's once peaceful haven. Silence hung between us as the car glided along. Thoughts of the case and Samuel's unnerving calm swirled in my head. Outside, the city's heartbeat thrummed, muffled but persistent. We took a turn, and the Obi house came into view, still sealed off with strips of police tape that fluttered in the breeze. I felt my grip on the steering wheel grow firmer as we stopped out front. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, eyeing the darkened doorway. Samuel nodded. "There are things I need to get. Belongings," he said, his voice a shade deeper. The words edged with something I could not place. A twinge of doubt nipped at me, yet I shrugged it off. The trial's shadows were playing tricks on my mind, I told myself. Samuel's strange ways had to be the scars of what he had been through, nothing more. Despite everything, as Samuel beckoned me towards the dark doorway, my instincts were yelling to turn back, to leave him and this cursed place behind. But a twisted sense of duty nudged me forward. I had fought for his freedom. The least I could do was walk with him through this grim task. Quietude enveloped the house as we docked under the police tape. The air was thick with the musk of disuse, and a lone floorboard groaned somewhere unseen, shattering the quiet. Our footsteps were the only other sound, a solitary drumbeat which seemed to acknowledge the tragedy of the house. Fear tiptoed up my spine, not from the chill alone, but from a deeper sense of dread that this place breathed, mirroring the grim photos I had pored over. In the backdrop, the relentless tick of a clock burrowed into the quiet, adding to the unease. Ghostly white sheets draped over the furniture in the living room, hiding the stains and stories of the obese last moments. It felt as if the shadows themselves harbored malice. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, the crime scene images flickering in my mind like an old movie. Samuel climbed without hesitation, each of his steps firm and deliberate. The scant light from the street lamps outside reached in, stretching shadows across the walls into long ominous shapes which danced with our movement. The door swung open to reveal Samuel's childhood room, untouched by time. He dug through the closet, hastily packing a satchel. I lingered, feeling out of place among the remnants of his past scattered around the room. A faded family portrait caught my eye. The obese caught in a moment of joy. Seeing their smiles against the backdrop of this grim chapter twisted my insides. Questions spun in my head about what really happened here. Meanwhile, Samuel's satchel swallowed item after item, its contents a mystery that hinted at darkness. After he zipped his bag shut, Samuel's gaze locked onto mine, a curious glint in his eyes. "Thanks for all you've done, counselor," he said, a smirk curling the edge of his lips. "But your part in this is over." His words scraped across my ears, rough and chilling. I tried to speak, yet the words wouldn't come. Fear clenched my chest, cold and immobilizing. Samuel moved closer, his eyes dark voids which seemed to swallow hope. "You're on deck now, Mr. Okpara. I need a final piece for my ceremony, and it cannot be someone who will dig around afterwards." Every muscle in me screamed to run, to shout for help, but they betrayed me, frozen in place. How did Samuel have this hold over me? Samuel's fingers dug into my shoulder, iron hard, as his lips contorted into a grotesque excuse for a smile. "Let's go," he sneered. "We can't be late for the ritual at midnight." He pushed me out of the door, and I staggered, unable to resist his push. The bag, heavy with eerie contents, knocked against his leg. I could do nothing, say nothing, as he thrust me into the driver's seat of my car. It dawned on me then, clear and chilling. Defending Samuel wasn't my crowning achievement. It was a critical error. This man was not the mournful son I had made him out to be in the courtroom. "Drive," he ordered, sliding into the passenger seat and flinging his bag onto the back seat. My hands locked on the wheel, my knuckles bleaching with tension as I pulled out of the driveway against my will. What nightmare was unfolding? What dark ritual awaited? And what secrets lurked in that bag? Panic squeezed my breath, yet my foot still pressed the accelerator. My hands still turned the wheel. The drive stretched on, the glow of street lights fading behind us as we left the suburbs for Kogi. With every mile, it felt like we were sinking deeper into unknown, menacing darkness. The GPS's voice cut through the silence. "You have arrived at your destination." A shabby house, hugged by thick woods, stood in the night's embrace, isolated. Samuel came around and yanked my door open. "Out!" he barked. "Everything's ready inside." I stepped out, even as my mind reeled in terror, begging me to resist, to struggle. But some invisible power moved me onward into the growing dread. Samuel tugged at my arm, pulling me to the door. We stepped into the pitch-black house, and the sickening scent of blood hit me like a wave. That is when my voice burst out, a raw, desperate scream. It filled the dark space unanswered. No one would come. There was no escape. Agony enveloped me, and shadows crept in. The blade's bite rippled through my flesh, vibrating with my racing pulse, loud in the silence of the room. My sight dimmed to a haze, and the last thing that reached my fading senses was Samuel's laughter. A chilling victory in its tone. Somtoochukwu Benedict Ezioha is known for his work in AI and digital marketing, as well as his love for literature in Nigeria. He lives in Awka, Anambra State. He co-founded Zen Pens, a fast-growing community for writers in Africa in 2018. You can read more of his work on Medium at Somipan and connect with him on X at Somi242pan. Details and links will be in the episode description. If you've got a story you would like to be featured on this podcast, or a published book you want to make into an audiobook, send an email to info@osadumebi.com or send me a message at Osadumebi on either Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. I look forward to collaborating with you. And if you've enjoyed this week's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell someone, everyone, that stories are a good escape for a few minutes each week.